History of Waffle House and what makes it special, it's the people. Hands down, there's no other answer for that than the people. It's about relationships on both sides of the counter. This is one of the few remaining places where you can get a hello or a greeting as you come in. If you've been a regular with us, we know your name. We address you by your first name. First names are everything. You sit down and you're able to kind of sit in our kitchen because we don't have a back room where the food is cooked. You actually get to see it cooked right in front of your eyes and be able to enjoy some conversation, some nice banter back and forth. And what happens is that people really become wedded to the people who are serving them, and our servers and grill operators, to call our line cooks, become part of the family. It's, before you know it, they're talking about their kids, each other's families, high school graduations. We begin to attend each other's weddings, and there are some funerals that we have attended as well, simply because of that connection. Human beings need that connection of being with one another, being able to converse with one another, being able to share some of their burdens and some of their happy times. And that's all takes place inside the little shoebox that we call the Waffle House.
And I mean, it's been that way since day one. When Joe and Tom first opened Waffle House Liberty Weekend, 1955, that was their motto. It's people first. It's who's looking out for the poor old cash customer. Once you come through that door, it doesn't matter who you are. Sit down, have a great meal. And that's why, for instance, our most beloved and most famous hourly associate was Miss Lucy. She actually joined us in 1957, and she stayed with us for 47 years as an hourly associate. And she was known all over Atlanta as being the warmest and just the most motherly person that you could ever meet. And that's one of the reasons that we loved her so much, that she stayed with us for so long. And she taught the company a lot. That's actually where we got the door core position from. And, she was the first person that started the greet the customer immediately when they come in the door. She actually invented that.
Yeah, Lucy Shelton, African-American woman. And again, as Virginia said, 1957, right?
Yes.
And we know what was going on in the South at that time. It wasn't necessarily a nice time for everyone. But Waffle House, again, it didn't matter what your background was, where you came from, who your mama was, or any of that. If you wanted to come and dine with us, you were welcome. There were no separate doors or any of that kind of thing. We weren't perfect, of course. I'm sure we might have had a couple of folks who worked for us who weren't quite so nice, but we worked hard at not necessarily being perfect, but striving for excellence so that people felt at home. And Waffle Houses today, we call them Waffle Homes because in a lot of instances, they may be the one place that someone can actually have little to no chaos in their life. A place where they know that they will be accepted, a place where they know they can get a nice piping hot meal, comes straight off the grill. That's the best way to eat it, by the way. Although we do to-goes and takeouts, it's really great at the dining table on real china with real silverware and have a great meal just like you would if you were at a family gathering.
And
although we are a chain, each restaurant is its own entity. So it really becomes a part of the fabric of the community that it's in. And because of that, the strength of relationships, the need to be able to count on one another, the pandemic, as it did with everyone, really stepped us back a minute. You know, it was, no one knew, right? No one knew what to expect. How deadly was this thing? How did it get transmitted? All of that. But what stood out and made us a little different is that we have a history, some 30 plus years history of crisis management. And that comes from dealing with hurricanes, tornadoes, winter storms, you name it. We have created a system by which we are able to communicate on the ground rapidly. We do preseason prep so that everybody knows what to expect, even helping them with their own family preparations at home, as well as, of course, what to do with the business. So when the pandemic hit, we relied on that training. We relied on all those things we had learned over those 30 plus years to help us formulate a plan to get us back in the game, if you will. You will remember that there were lockdown orders. People weren't allowed to leave their homes in some places. Restaurants were required in many states to go only, takeaways only, couldn't dine in. And, you know, dine in that's our identity. That's our bread and butter. That's who we are. So we had to adjust for that. And it was amazing and it was sad at the same time, because with the lockdowns, when you don't have customers coming in the door, customers are what drive a restaurant, right? And if there aren't customers to serve or to cook for, then you can't really keep the restaurant open. You just can't keep it open. The cost was so enormous to run a restaurant and not have any customers. And so what we found ourselves in was a very painful circumstance of, for the first time, having to close up to 700 restaurants at one time during the pandemic. At our lowest point, we had to furlough some 28,000. It's still really hard today to talk about it, but some 28,000 members of our family, friends that we had to ask to sit on the sidelines so that we could keep a small part of the company healthy enough to survive, because it's a lot easier to restart business when you still have business going, as opposed to shut down completely, which was completely alien to us. Shutting down restaurants. I mean, there's always that joke that, you know, Waffle House never closes its doors, so we don't know where the keys are. And in some instances, that was true. But we made it through. We were able to keep a remnant of the restaurants going, and we were able to invite back every single person who we had furloughed. And during that time, we kept the faith with them. We stayed in contact, communication. We assisted with food. We assisted in any way that we could, just to keep people knowing that we were there for them. And we came out on the other side, and we were able to thrive, not just survive. And we're really grateful for that. We're grateful to the associates who helped us through that. And most importantly, too, we're grateful to the customers. We've tried to be there for them, for their good times, their bad times, and of course, in times of disaster, and they were there for us. Some of the most unique things I remember is that associates got very creative. They would do pop-up restaurants. They pop up in a neighborhood, you know, they announce it on the social media that they were going to be there. They do pop-up restaurants. We sold groceries. You know, we had drive-throughs. You know, Waffle Houses don't have drive-throughs. We only have one, which is in the Stone Mountain area on Memorial Drive. So what they did is they got some pop-up tents, and they made little curbside drive-throughs, if you will, where they could drive up and place their order, and then we'd relay the order back inside to the grill operator, who would cook the order, and the server would then prepare the food and bring it back out and take the transaction. So there were so many unique ways that each one of them worked to be able to help us stay afloat. And that's why we're still standing today. That's why we're still as strong as we are today. And it's all about the people, our associates, which is what we call our employees, and our customers.
The museum itself is actually split into two sides. So originally, that building was two separate stores, two separate businesses, and the Waffle House was actually renting just one side. We have since come back and purchased the entire property. So on one side, you actually have a replica of the restaurant itself. Because there were some intervening years, a couple of decades, where we were not in that unit. And so Joe and Tom had to go back and from memory and a little bit of, arguing amongst themselves about how many stools exactly there were. We recreated everything from their memory. So that's one side of the museum. And I go through, our early years, how Joe and Tom met, their friendship, and the first couple of decades of company growth. And then I go to the other side of the museum, which we've turned into, I guess you'd say, a more traditional exhibit-based museum. And in there, we talk about, it's more self-guided, but I can still lead people through exhibits about Tuttle House, our uniform history, our menu history. You get to see some really cool limited edition merch that we have in there, which I try to, keep fresh and change out from time to time because we love our merch here. And then I have some exhibits about our storm response, employee programs and training. I have an exhibit about vendor partnerships and how we treat the companies that we work with, because we're very intent on working with as much as possible single source companies for all of our different menu items. We love name brands, and we think that really speaks to the quality that we have for our food, and we want our customers to know that we use these brands. And then I also have a little dedication to Joe and Tom. So I have some of their items in there. And for instance, I actually have exhibited in there. Did you know, for instance, that Joe Sr. actually wrote a book? Yeah, he actually wrote a memoir, and I have the copy of that in there.
Let's not forget that they were military veterans. And so that service to their country was very important. And that's why you'll see, depending on where you are, various accolades or remembrances that are done for veterans in the different restaurants. We have that here at the corporate office on November 11th and Memorial Day, because their service was so important to them. It was after the service that this genius idea took hold. So Virginia, why don't you share?
Yes. So Joe and Tom, they both did serve in World War II. And Tom was actually from Georgia, and his family had actually moved up to Avondale Estates. And actually, as an aside, they actually purchased their family homestead from the Coca-Cola family. And even that property is still there, just down the street. And Joe ended up moving into Atlanta because he was working for Tuttle House. That's where he learned the restaurant business. And he realized he really had a knack for management and working with people. And when he got a promotion to move down to Atlanta, well, you need a place to live when you move to a new city. And Tom was a real estate agent, a realtor, working for Fortner Realty, his family's company. And they bumped into each other, and they became lifelong friends then and there. And we kind of joke about it, but Tom not only sold Joe a house, he sold him the house right next to his house. So they literally became next door neighbors. And again, both those houses are still there today. I did not get to meet these two gentlemen. I think they passed away, yes, just before. So, and Jerry could speak to their personalities, but from what I have been told, Joe was quite the card. He loved to joke. He was very, very outgoing. Tom, again, good with people, but a little bit more soft-spoken. And so these two guys, they were the dynamic duo. Joe would do a lot more of the management and working with a lot of people, kind of being the face. And Tom really enjoyed dealing with finances and the real estate.
Yeah, definitely. I had the pleasure of getting to meet Tom before he passed away. Actually, I had started with the company as a manager trainee, which is where everybody who works in the restaurants starts in management if you were going into management. And so we have something called Waffle House University. And after you've gone through and completed all of the training, which is about a 9 to 12 week program, do a soft landing, which means they set you up in the restaurant. And when you get checked in and work for a little bit of time, so you can kind of get your feet under you, you get an opportunity to come to Waffle House University, which is held here at the corporate office in Norcross, Georgia. And Tom, and I believe Joe for a while, but Tom came as regularly as he could. And I got to take my picture with him. I was class number 599, and we are up to 750, almost 800 classes of students we've held. And Tom was a card. He really was. He was a jokester. He was a bit of a prankster, but good people, both of them good people, salt of the earth kind of folk. Never met a stranger. And so that is reflected in our culture. That is part of why it's always been, we're not in the restaurant business, and we do take great pride in the food we serve. We're in the people business. You got to take care of the people, whether they're working on one side of the counter or they're enjoying their meal on the other side of the counter. And that came directly from them. The strength of their friendship, the just sheer zest for life that they had. That's part of the fun that we try to inculcate in every restaurant. We try to replicate it in every restaurant. And again, we're not perfect, but we strive for that excellence every day.
Interestingly, though, and this happens with a lot of items on our menu and some of the language, it was actually invented by a franchisee. And it was something that I think it was Joe Jr. actually came across in his travels, because our upper management and the ownership, they go into the units and they work. They are not office people. They wear uniforms and they go and work in the units. And he happened to be at, I think it was a franchisee's unit, and he overheard their lingo. They almost were talking to each other in a different language, like scattered, smothered, covered. And he was like, that's pretty awesome. And now it's not just system wide. It's kind of iconic at this point. We're actually known for it. And then
Right.
yeah, and then other pieces of that capped. Why is my mind blanking?
Well, it's peppered, capped,
Pepper.
diced,
I like mine
chunked.
with just cheese, so
All
sue
the
me, I'm a
way.
little boring.
But it is amazing. And so people can get a variety of toppings. You can mix them up. You can get them all the way. Hash browns scattered all the way. And that's with everything. That includes the sausage gravy, the chili, the ham, ham chunks, the pepper, which is jalapeno peppers, cheese, a slice of cheese, as well as diced tomatoes and mushrooms, which are capped. So that's a lot to put on hash browns, but we've seen folks do it. Now that we have hash brown bowls, the bowls get bigger and bigger each day, just depending on who's ordering. Every day is a great day for Waffle House. We serve more than just breakfast. We also have lunch. We are the biggest purchaser and seller of T-bone steaks in the world. Bet you didn't know that. There are a lot of other really neat things there. Like I said, the jukebox just sets the atmosphere. And come on down and become a member of our regulars club. They enjoy free coupons all the time and really neat things throughout the year, and opportunities to sample some wonderful stuff that we offer, limited edition. And of course, we do have an online merchandising shop where you can get your Waffle House swag on your t-shirt, your hat, whatever you need. So Waffle House is just a waffle home. It is a special place, and if you've never been, we invite you to come and definitely visit Virginia at